The woman has lived on the estate for 5 years with her 2 children. Her husband had gone to the front to fight in the war and had not been heard from since. One night, I don't know what terrible thing happened. The servants in the manor all mysteriously disappeared. Grace had no choice but to write a job advertisement to find someone to work. On a foggy morning, 3 people came to apply for the job. The old woman was hired as a housekeeper, the man as a gardener, and the girl who couldn't speak as a maid. The 3 men noticed that Grace has a strange habit of closing all the curtains in her house even in the middle of the day. Grace explained to them that it was because both of her children had a strange disease that made them particularly sensitive to light, and if they were exposed to sunlight, their lives would be in danger. The next morning, the housekeeper was preparing breakfast for the children when Grace came up to her and asked her something. It turned out that no one had picked up the recruitment mail at the entrance of the villa at all, which meant that the 3 people who had come to apply for the job had come on their own without receiving an invitation. The housekeeper explained that they had worked here before, and this time they came with the intention of trying it out. After hearing this, Grace thought it was just a coincidence and didn't pursue the matter any further. But what Grace didn't expect was that something weird happened right afterward. That night, the 2 children were concentrating on reading. The son complained to Grace that his sister always told ghost stories to scare him. Grace was angry at this and criticized her daughter, but the daughter insisted that what she told was true. Grace reprimanded her to stop talking nonsense and decided to let the siblings study separately in the future. One day, Grace was talking to the housekeeper on the first floor. She asked the girl who worked as a maid if she was born mute, and the housekeeper stammered that she was not. Grace wanted to ask more, but the housekeeper made an excuse and left the room. Just then, the sound of crying came from upstairs. Grace thought it was her son who was afraid of the dark and rushed over to comfort him, but her brother looked innocent and didn't cry at all. Grace felt confused and ran to her daughter's room to check again. Strangely enough, her daughter was also fine. Grace continued to ask questions. The daughter said that the crying was Victor, and said that Victor had just moved here, and that his father, who was a pianist, was now in the living room. Of course, Mom didn't believe her daughter because she had just been in the living room and there was no one there, and the doors to the room were locked, so no one else could even get in. She said this while turning her head, only to find that the door lock had been unlocked. Grace then got the maid and butler over and reprimanded them for not locking the door after opening it. The butler hastily explained that he had just been outside, and that what happened upstairs must have nothing to do with them. Grace is furious and doesn't know who to lash out at, insisting that it's the butler and the maid who are at fault. In the evening, the sister wakes up her brother and says that Victor is here, and pulls back the curtains. The brother is frightened enough. He doesn't know who his sister is arguing with. The brother begged his sister to stop making strange noises to scare him, but the sister asked Victor to touch his brother's face. As a hand slowly approached his brother's face, the brother screamed out loud in terror. Grace heard the noise and ran over, hugging her son and angrily reprimanding her daughter. The next day, Grace punished her sister to stand and read the Bible, but the sister insisted that she hadn't lied. Grace was so angry that she tried to calm herself down a bit by embroidering flowers. Just then, there was a great commotion from upstairs, and even the chandelier shook with it. Grace thought at first that it was the servants making the noise, but when she turned her head, she saw that the servants were standing outside the window talking. She had to go upstairs to check it out herself. The rattling seemed to be coming from the storage room, and she gathered the courage to walk in, and sure enough, she heard someone whispering.
Shh! She's what?
It turned out that her daughter really hadn't lied. There were indeed other people in this house.